Tom lived in a small city apartment on the fourth floor of an old building. The rent was high, and his job at the local supply shop was not enough to cover all his bills. Every month he counted his coins carefully, hoping he could make it. His landlord, Mr. Malik, was not a bad man, but he was strict about payments. Tom knew that if he failed even once, he might lose his home. One evening, while Tom was reading on his worn-out sofa, a knock came at the door. Mr. Malik stood there with his hands behind his back, looking unusually excited. He cleared his throat and said, "Tom, I have found someone to share your apartment. From tomorrow, you will have a roommate. She will pay half the rent." Tom blinked in surprise. A roommate? He had never lived with anyone except his cousin during his school years. He opened his mouth to ask who it was, but Mr. Malik raised a finger as if to stop questions. "She is part of a program. You will understand when she arrives. Just be respectful. This is good for you, Tom. You will finally breathe without worrying about money." The next evening, Tom waited with curiosity. He had cleaned the apartment as best as he could. The small living room smelled of fresh tea, and he had even folded the blanket on the sofa neatly. At exactly 7 o'clock, the knock came again. When Tom opened the door, he froze. Standing there was not a student or worker from the city but someone completely different. She was taller than him, with silver-gray eyes that seemed to glow softly even in the dim hallway light. Her hair was dark and straight, flowing neatly down her shoulders. Her skin had a faint shimmer, as if touched by starlight. Mr. Malik gave a small smile and stepped forward. "Tom, this is Myra. She comes from far away. She will stay here as part of the cultural exchange program between humans and her people. She will pay rent on time, I assure you. Treat her with respect." Tom stuttered, unsure what to say. He had seen aliens only on the news and in passing across the city. They usually lived in their own areas, and ordinary people like him never got close to them. And now one of them was going to live with him under the same roof. Myra carried a small metallic case in one hand. She stepped inside without hesitation, her movements smooth and confident. She looked around the small apartment with interest, her gaze moving across the cracked walls, the tiny kitchen, and the shelves filled with Tom's old books. She placed her case on the floor and turned toward him. "This place is simple," she said, her voice calm but carrying a strange echo, as if two tones spoke at once. "But I like it. It feels lived in." Tom managed a nervous smile. "It is not much, but it is home." She tilted her head slightly, studying him. "Home. Yes. That is what I seek." Mr. Malik clapped his hands together. "Good. You two will manage. I will leave you to settle." He stepped out quickly, closing the door behind him. Silence filled the room. Tom stood awkwardly by the sofa while Myra slowly walked across the space, touching the table, the chair, and even the old kettle in the kitchen. She seemed curious about everything. Finally, she turned to him again. "Do you have rules I must follow?" she asked. Tom rubbed the back of his neck. "Well, not really. Just keep the kitchen clean and don't make too much noise at night. I guess that is all." Myra nodded slowly. "I will respect your ways. In return, I ask one thing. Do not fear me. I know humans sometimes worry about us. I only wish to live peacefully." Her words eased something inside Tom. He had been nervous, but hearing her speak so calmly made him feel less uneasy. He nodded. "I will not fear you. We can just live together as normal people." She gave a small smile. It was faint, but it softened her face in a way that surprised him. She then lifted her case, opened it, and pulled out a small glowing orb. She placed it on the table, and instantly the room was filled with gentle light, brighter and warmer than any lamp Tom had ever seen. "This will help me rest," she explained. Do you mind? Tom shook his head, still amazed. No, it's fine. That night, as Tom lay in his bed, he could hear the faint hum of the glowing orb from Myra's side of the apartment. His mind was restless. Only yesterday he had worried about losing his home, and now he shared it with someone from another world. He could not tell if this was good fortune or the start of trouble, but one thing was certain: his life would never be the same again. The first morning with Myra as his roommate was unlike any morning Tom had experienced before. He woke to the faint sound of humming, not mechanical, but soft and melodic, coming from the kitchen. When he stepped out of his small bedroom, he found Myra standing by the stove. She was not using the gas or pans, but instead holding a plate of bread in her hands. A gentle light glowed from her palms, and the bread toasted perfectly without burning. Tom froze in the doorway, blinking in disbelief. "You can cook like that?" he asked. Myra turned her silver eyes toward him. "My people shape energy. It is normal. Does it disturb you?" Tom shook his head quickly. No, no. It's just different. We usually use fire or heat from machines." She placed the toasted bread on the table with a nod. "Machines are slow. Your way is patient. That is good too." Tom sat down, still amazed. He noticed that Myra had also poured water into 2 cups, but the water now sparkled with tiny lights. When he lifted one cup, it tasted fresh, as if drawn from a mountain spring. "You changed the water?" he asked. "I only cleaned it," Myra said calmly. "It is what I always do before drinking." For Tom, it was the start of many surprises. Living with Myra meant every ordinary action became new. She studied human things carefully, often asking questions. When Tom made tea, she wanted to know why people boiled leaves in water. When he read a book, she asked why humans preferred written words when memory could be stored inside devices. One afternoon, Tom came home from work to find Myra crouched by the radio. The old device had been broken for weeks, yet now it played clear music. "How did you fix it?" he asked. Myra glanced at him. "It was not broken. It only needed balance. Machines here are loud and tired. But I like your music. It tells stories." Tom laughed a little, shaking his head. "For us, that was broken. For you, it just needed balance." These moments made Tom both amused and curious. At first, he thought they would struggle to live together. But instead of clashing, they began to share small discoveries. Myra taught him small tricks, like how to keep food fresh longer by placing a thin energy shield around it. Tom, in return, showed her how to use the bus system and how to pay with coins. Still, it was not always easy. Myra did not understand the idea of privacy. Sometimes, she would enter Tom's room without knocking, simply because she wanted to observe something. Once, she picked up his notebook and began to read aloud. Tom hurried to take it back, his face red. "You should not read that," he said firmly. "Why not?" Myra asked, tilting her head. "It is only words." "It is personal," Tom explained. "Humans like to keep some things private. It means they belong only to them." Myra studied him in silence, then gave a short nod. "I see. Then I will respect this." After that, she always paused at his door before entering. Another challenge was food. Myra enjoyed trying human meals, but her way of cooking often left strange results. Once, she tried to prepare soup but heated it too much with her energy. The vegetables turned into a soft paste, and the whole pot boiled over. Tom had to open all the windows because of the smell. "This is not failure," Myra said seriously while Tom laughed. "This is learning." Despite such moments, Tom noticed he began to look forward to coming home. Myra filled the apartment with quiet life. Her glowing orb in the living room gave the place a warm light in the evenings. Sometimes she hummed in her strange voice, and the sound calmed him after a long day. One night, as they sat together drinking tea, Myra asked him, "Do you find it hard to live with me?" Tom thought carefully before answering. "At first, yes. But now, no. It is strange, but it is also good. I learn new things every day." Her silver eyes softened. "I feel the same. Your world is heavy, yet full of color. I am learning much from you." Tom smiled, realizing they were no longer just strangers sharing space. A connection was slowly forming between them, built not on similarity but on curiosity and respect. When Tom went to bed that night, he thought about how quiet his life had been before Myra arrived. It had been simple, yes, but also empty. Now, with every small moment turning into something unexpected, the apartment no longer felt small or old. It felt alive. Days slowly turned into weeks, and Tom found that life with Myra no longer felt unusual. What once seemed strange was now part of his daily routine. He would wake in the morning and find her quietly arranging the kitchen, her glowing orb lighting the room like gentle sunlight. When he returned from work, she was often waiting with questions about the city or about people she had seen during the day. Tom had never thought of himself as an interesting person, yet Myra seemed fascinated by even the smallest details of his life. She would ask why people hurried when walking on the streets, why some smiled at strangers while others frowned, and why the city was filled with noise at night. Tom tried to answer as best he could, though sometimes her questions made him think in ways he never had before. One evening, they sat together in the living room while rain tapped softly against the window. Myra leaned forward, studying the drops that slid down the glass. "Rain is alive in a way," she said. "Each drop has its path. Do you see?" Tom tilted his head, watching the patterns on the glass. "I never thought of it like that. For us, rain is just weather. Sometimes we enjoy it, sometimes we complain." Myra turned her glowing eyes toward him. "You see it as simple, but I see movement, choice, and connection. Even small things have meaning." Tom smiled faintly. "You make ordinary things sound special." Her gaze lingered on him for a moment before she looked back at the window. There was something calm in the silence that followed, something Tom did not often feel with other people. Over time, Tom began to notice Myra's habits more closely. She often sat quietly with her case open, small lights moving inside it like tiny stars. She would touch them gently, and sometimes they would form shapes, almost like memories she was recalling. Tom wanted to ask, but he did not wish to intrude on something personal. Still, she often caught him watching and gave him a small smile, as if to say she did not mind. One Saturday, Tom decided to take Myra to the marketplace. The streets were crowded with people, stalls filled with food, clothes, and bright decorations. Myra walked beside him, her eyes wide with interest. Children stared at her silver gaze, and some whispered, but Myra walked calmly, unbothered. At one stall, she stopped to watch a man painting small pictures. The artist dipped his brush into colors and moved his hand with care. Myra leaned close, studying each stroke. "Your people capture life with paint," she said softly. "We do not do this. We keep memories in light, but this has warmth." The artist smiled nervously, unsure what to say. Tom gently touched Myra's shoulder. "Do you want one?" She nodded, and Tom paid for a small painting of the city skyline at sunset. Myra held it carefully, as if it were treasure. "This will stay with me," she said. As they walked back home, Tom noticed how different the world looked when seen through her eyes. Things he had ignored like music from a street corner, the smell of roasted food, or laughter of children seemed brighter when Myra spoke of them. That night, while placing the painting on the shelf, Myra asked quietly, "Why do humans give gifts?" Tom thought for a moment. "To show care, I suppose." A gift means you thought of someone. Myra tilted her head slightly. Then today you gave me more than a painting. You gave me a piece of your thought. Tom felt his face warm, unsure how to respond. He simply nodded, but inside he felt something stir. As days passed, Myra began to ask deeper questions. One evening she asked, "Why do humans form families?" Tom answered carefully. "Because people do not want to be alone. Families give support, comfort, and belonging. They are not always perfect, but they make life meaningful." Myra listened intently, her silver eyes fixed on him. Belonging. That word is strong. I wonder if it is what I am seeking here. Tom's heart beat a little faster at her words, though he said nothing. Later that night, Tom lay awake in his bed, thinking about their conversation. He realized that Myra was no longer just a roommate. She was becoming part of his life in a way he had not expected. She filled the silence, turned ordinary moments into something brighter, and made him feel seen in a way few people ever had. He did not know where this connection would lead, but he knew one thing for certain: Myra was no longer just a guest in his home. She was slowly becoming part of his world, and he was not sure he wanted life to return to how it had been before. The days of sharing space with Myra turned into a rhythm Tom had grown used to. Life with her was full of small surprises, but he no longer felt uneasy. If anything, he found comfort in her presence. The apartment felt brighter, even on days when Tom was tired from work. Myra always had questions, always noticed things others ignored, and always seemed to study him as though he held secrets she wanted to understand. One evening, Tom returned from work later than usual. Rain had soaked his jacket, and he was shivering slightly. When he entered the apartment, he found Myra waiting at the table with the glowing orb placed between them. She looked serious, her silver eyes reflecting the light like pools of water. "You are late," she said softly. Tom gave a small laugh as he removed his wet jacket. "Yes, the shop was busy. People rushed to buy things before storms." Myra did not smile. She motioned for him to sit. "Tom, I must speak with you. It is important." Her calm tone carried more weight than usual, and Tom felt his stomach tighten. He sat across from her, rubbing his hands together to warm them. "What is it?" he asked. Myra looked at him with steady eyes. "I have made a choice. According to the ways of my people, I must find a bondmate. It is a connection deeper than friendship, stronger than family. Once chosen, it cannot be broken." Tom blinked, unsure if he had heard correctly. "A bondmate?" "Yes," Myra continued. "It is not casual. It is life-changing. We choose carefully, for it binds us to another soul. It is a promise of loyalty, trust, and future. I have chosen you." Tom's mouth went dry. He stared at her, words refusing to form. "Me," he managed finally. "Why me? You must have others of your kind who would understand you better." Myra's expression remained calm, but her voice carried quiet strength. "I lived here with you. I watched how you live with kindness even in difficulty. I saw how you care for things, even when they are small or broken. You welcomed me when you could have feared me. You are loyal, steady, and true. These are the qualities my people value above all. That is why I demand you as mine." The word demand startled Tom. He leaned back, feeling a mix of confusion and unease. "Myra, this is too sudden. We are so different. I am human, and you are, well, from another world. How can this work?" Myra did not waver. "Difference does not break bonds. It makes them stronger. I do not see your humanity as weakness. I see it as strength. You feel deeply, and you stand firm even when the world is heavy. That is what I need." Tom rubbed his forehead, trying to process her words. He had grown close to Myra, yes, but this step felt enormous. A bondmate sounded permanent, far more serious than anything he had imagined. "Myra," he said slowly, "this is too much for me to answer right now. You may have chosen, but I do not even understand what it truly means." Her silver gaze softened slightly, though determination still burned in her voice. "I do not expect you to understand all at once. But know this: I will not choose another. My decision is made. Whether you accept now or later, I will wait." Silence hung between them. Tom's thoughts swirled. Part of him felt honored, even touched, that Myra saw such value in him. But another part of him was afraid. Could he take on something that seemed larger than life? That night, Tom lay awake, staring at the ceiling. Myra's words echoed in his mind, "I demand you as mine." He thought about how she had defended his little apartment, how she found beauty in ordinary rain, how she had looked at the painting from the market as if it were a treasure. She was unlike anyone he had ever met. But still, the weight of her request pressed heavily on him. He was only an ordinary man, struggling to pay rent, working long hours at a shop. What could he truly offer someone like her, someone who seemed so far beyond his world? In the quiet of the night, Tom realized something else. Myra's choice was not just about him. It was also about her. She had left her people to live here, among humans. She had stepped into a small apartment when she could have lived in comfort with her own kind. And she had watched him closely, long enough to decide he was worth binding her future to. The thought both humbled him and frightened him. When Tom closed his eyes, he still saw Myra's silver gaze, steady and sure. She had made her choice. The question now was whether he would find the courage to make his own. After Myra spoke those heavy words, Tom could not look at her the same way. He tried to live as before, sharing the apartment, eating meals together, and answering her endless questions, but the thought never left his mind: she had chosen him as her bondmate. It hung in the air between them like an invisible thread, pulling at him no matter what he did. At work, Tom found himself distracted. Customers asked for items, and he gave them the wrong things. His boss scolded him more than once. Tom's mind was always elsewhere, replaying Myra's calm, certain voice, "I demand you as mine." When he walked home through the crowded streets, he noticed things he had ignored before. People looked at him differently now. Some had seen him walking with Myra at the market. Whispers followed him, "That's the one with the alien roommate." Some laughed quietly, some frowned, and others looked at him with curiosity. Tom was not used to being the center of attention. He preferred to stay unnoticed, but now it felt impossible. Even his landlord, Mr. Malik, gave him strange looks when collecting rent. "You're keeping peace with her, yes?" the landlord asked one evening. "People talk. Some say you are too close." Tom had no answer. He only nodded and avoided further questions. Back at the apartment, Myra seemed unchanged. She lived with the same calm presence as before, asking questions, learning human ways, and filling the small rooms with her gentle light. But Tom noticed something different whenever she looked at him. Her gaze was deeper, steady, as if she was waiting for something. One night, while Tom prepared tea, he finally asked, "Myra, do your people really expect you to choose a bondmate like this? So suddenly?" Myra looked at him with quiet certainty. "Not suddenly. We watch, we learn, we decide. It may feel fast to you, but for me, it is clear. I do not choose lightly." "But you said it is permanent," Tom pressed. "What if you regret it? What if I disappoint you?" She set her cup down gently. "If you are true to yourself, you cannot disappoint me. I do not seek perfection. I seek truth. That is why I chose you." Her words made Tom's chest tighten. He wanted to believe her, but doubt still weighed heavily. The following week, Tom's friends from work invited him out for dinner. They asked about Myra almost immediately. So, what's it like living with her? One of them asked, leaning forward eagerly. Does she eat the same food as us? Can she really glow in the dark? Tom answered their questions patiently, but then one of them grinned and said, "Be careful, Tom. They say aliens sometimes claim humans for themselves. Imagine if she decided you belong to her." Everyone laughed, but Tom did not. The words struck too close to the truth. He forced a smile and quickly changed the subject. That night, as he walked home alone, the city lights felt dimmer than usual. For the first time, he wondered if he was ready to carry the weight of Myra's choice. When he reached the apartment, Myra was sitting by the window, watching the street below. She did not turn as he entered but spoke softly. "You are troubled." Tom sighed. "People talk. They don't understand. Some think it's strange we live together. Some think it's wrong." Myra turned to him, her silver eyes glowing faintly. "Do you care for their words more than your own heart?" Tom hesitated. "It's not easy to ignore them. I don't even know what my heart wants yet." She stood and walked toward him slowly. "I do not ask you to decide tonight. I only ask you to see me, not as alien, not as strange, but as myself. The choice will always be yours." Tom felt his breath catch. For the first time, her calm voice carried a hint of something fragile: hope, perhaps even fear. He realized that though she spoke with certainty, Myra too was waiting for his answer with quiet patience. In the days that followed, Tom thought more deeply than ever before. He began to notice how much Myra had already become part of his life. He thought of the way she laughed softly when trying human food, the way she turned ordinary rain into poetry, the way her presence filled the apartment with warmth. At the same time, doubt remained. Could he really step into a bond that Myra said was forever? What if he failed? What if the gap between human and alien life was too wide to cross? The question followed him into every corner of his mind. He stood between two choices: to step forward into something unknown, or to step back into the ordinary life he had once known. One evening, Tom found himself staring at the small painting Myra had bought from the market, the sunset skyline. She had placed it carefully on the shelf, and every time he saw it, he remembered the way she held it like treasure. He realized that, in her own way, Myra had already given him pieces of herself: her trust, her patience, and her choice. The weight of his own decision pressed harder than ever. The day began like any other. Tom left for work, and Myra stayed behind in the apartment, tending to her strange glowing orb and practicing human cooking with slow patience. But when Tom returned in the evening, he immediately sensed something different. The air felt heavy, as if the room itself was waiting for him. Three figures stood in the living room with Myra. They were tall like her, with silver eyes that glowed faintly in the dim light. Their clothes shimmered faintly, made from fabrics Tom had never seen before. The moment they noticed him, the room fell silent. Myra stepped forward quickly. "Tom," she said, her voice calm but tense, "these are my people. They have come to see me, and you." Tom froze in the doorway. His heart thudded in his chest. He had seen aliens before in the city, but never in his own home, never so close. He nodded stiffly, unsure what to say. One of them, a man with sharp features and a steady voice, spoke. "You are the human she has chosen." Tom swallowed hard. "Yes, I suppose I am." The alien studied him, then glanced at Myra. "You surprise us. We thought your time here was only for learning. Instead, you claim a bond with this human." Myra lifted her chin. "Yes. I have chosen. It is my right." Another of the visitors, a woman with long silver hair, frowned. "This is not wise, Myra. Our ways are clear. A bondmate must be strong, balanced, and of equal standing. A human does not understand our traditions." He cannot carry the weight of such a bond. Tom felt a sting at her words, but Myra's voice grew firm. Strength is not only in tradition. Strength is in loyalty, in kindness, in the heart. Tom has these. The third visitor, younger in appearance, tilted his head. He looks fragile. Will he not break when life tests him? Tom clenched his fists, but before he could speak, Myra stepped closer to her people. You see fragility because you do not see what I see. He wakes each day, works hard with no reward but survival, and still he gives kindness. That is not weakness. That is true strength. The room grew tense. The three visitors exchanged glances. Tom stood quietly, unsure whether to speak or stay silent. He wanted to defend himself, but he also felt Myra's words were enough. Finally, the sharp-featured man asked Tom directly, "Do you even understand what she asks of you? Do you know what it means to be chosen as bondmate?" Tom hesitated. "I know it is permanent. I know it is more serious than anything I've ever faced. And I know it scares me." He took a breath and looked at Myra. "But I also know she sees something in me worth choosing. I don't want to dismiss that." Myra's eyes softened, but the visitors looked troubled. The woman shook her head. "You speak with honesty, but honesty may not be enough." Myra stepped forward, standing between Tom and her people. Her silver eyes glowed brighter. "I will not allow you to decide for me. I have chosen, and my choice is mine alone. If you cannot accept it, then you do not accept me." The boldness of her voice filled the small apartment. For the first time, Tom saw how much Myra was willing to risk. She was not simply making a demand of him, she was defying her own people for his sake. The visitors stared at her in silence, their expressions unreadable. Finally, the younger one gave a slow nod. "You are certain? Then we will not interfere. But remember, Myra, choices shape not only the self, but the future." With that, the three figures stepped back. Their forms shimmered, and in a blink, they were gone, leaving only the faint hum of the glowing orb in the room. Tom released the breath he had been holding. "Myra," he said softly, "you stood against them, for me." She turned to him, her calm expression hiding the storm of emotions behind her eyes. "I told you, Tom. My choice is made. No one, not even my people, can take it away." For a moment, Tom could not speak. He had doubted himself, doubted whether he was enough for her, but Myra's actions showed how much she valued him. She had risked respect from her people, perhaps even her place among them, just to stand by him. Slowly, Tom felt something inside him shift. Fear still lingered, but now it was mixed with something stronger: trust. Myra had defended him when she did not have to. She had seen strength in him even when he could not see it himself. That night, as Tom lay in bed, he thought about her words and the way she had stood firm. He realized that the choice was no longer only hers. Soon, he would have to decide too. The days after Myra's people left were quiet, but the silence was not empty. For Tom, it was filled with thought. He replayed the scene again and again in his mind: how Myra had stood tall before her own kind, defending him with unshaken voice. She had risked her place, her pride, and perhaps even her future, just to keep her choice. Tom had never asked for such loyalty, yet she had given it freely. And now, he knew it was his turn to answer. One evening, Tom sat on the sofa while Myra prepared tea. The soft glow of her orb filled the room, painting the walls in warm light. Myra placed a cup in front of him and sat across the table, her silver eyes calm as always. "You are troubled," she said quietly. Tom nodded. "Yes. Because I know I cannot avoid this forever. You told me your choice, Myra. Now I must make mine." Myra did not move, but her gaze never left his face. "I will not force you. Even if I wait a lifetime, the choice must be yours. Tom stared into his cup. I used to think I was ordinary. Just someone trying to pay rent and survive another day. But you see me as more than that. At first, I didn't understand why. I thought maybe it was a mistake. But when you stood against your people, I realized something. You don't see me as small. You see me as enough. And that made me ask myself, why don't I see the same? Myra's eyes softened. She leaned slightly forward. And now? Tom took a long breath. Now I do. I don't know what the future will bring. I don't know if I can live up to what you expect. But I know one thing. I don't want to go back to the life I had before you came. I don't want this apartment to feel empty again. I want you in it. I want you with me. Myra remained silent for a heartbeat, as if letting his words sink into the air. Then, slowly, her lips curved into the faintest smile. Then you accept? Tom nodded firmly. Yes. I accept. Not because you demand it, but because I choose it too. For the first time since he had met her, Myra's composure broke slightly. A flicker of emotion crossed her face, relief, joy, and something even deeper. She reached across the table, placing her hand gently over his. Her touch was warm, steady, and alive with quiet strength. In my world, she said softly, when two souls agree, the bond is sealed not by words but by truth in the heart. I feel your truth, Tom. That is enough. The room seemed to glow brighter for a moment, as if her orb responded to her joy. Tom felt warmth spread through him, a calmness he had not known for years. For the first time, he felt that the weight of uncertainty had lifted. He had chosen, and his choice gave him peace. From that night, their lives no longer felt like two paths running side by side. They were joined. Small routines changed into shared moments. Myra no longer asked if she could enter his room, she simply knocked softly, knowing he welcomed her presence. Tom no longer thought of the apartment as his, it was theirs. Outside, whispers in the city continued. Some people stared when they walked together, and some spoke behind their backs. But Tom no longer felt shame or doubt. Myra had stood against her people for him, and now he stood firm beside her. One evening, as they walked through the market once more, Tom noticed the same artist who had sold Myra the small painting. Myra stopped, admiring the colors again, and Tom turned to her. You said once that gifts mean thought, Tom reminded her. Well, I think of you every day. And I don't want that to change. Myra looked at him with shining eyes, her silver gaze steady and warm. Then it never will. Back at the apartment, as they sat together watching the lights of the city outside the window, Tom realized how far his life had come. He had once been worried only about bills and work. Now he carried something far greater, but it did not feel heavy. It felt like purpose. He turned to Myra, his voice calm but certain. We are no longer just roommates, are we? Myra gave a soft laugh, rare and genuine. No, Tom. We are not. The city outside continued its restless noise, but inside the small apartment there was peace. Two souls, human and alien, had chosen each other. And though the future was unknown, they would face it together, not as strangers, not as simply roommates, but as partners who had built a bridge between two worlds.